My girlfriend took my black card to show off for her true love from the past. On my very first day at work, she and her ex pulled a stunt. In his name, she invited everyone from my department to an upscale restaurant, ordered like there was no tomorrow, and paid for the feast with my credit card. When I confronted her, she brushed it off, saying her ex came from a rough background and I shouldn't be petty. According to her, this was just about helping him bond with my colleagues. I played along. Hell, I even handed over my designer watch and my car so her ex could strut around like some high-rolling hotshot. If that could help him climb the corporate ladder, fine, let him have his moment. But the guy got greedy. Way too greedy. Chasing a senior executive position, he went so far as to offer to personally front the cash for a multi-million-dollar bid on a major contract. Only, right before he swiped the card, I froze the account. And, just for fun, I filed a luxury theft report while I was at it. I'd been working late into the night, slumped in my chair, rubbing at my temples, bone-tired. Then my phone lit up with a notification. Mr. Evan Robinson, your card was charged $88,000 at 10 p.m. The fatigue vanished instantly. My heart lurched. I unlocked my phone in a rush, mind racing with shock and confusion, then saw a fresh social media post from one of my coworkers, the kind who loves documenting everything. Big thanks to our new teammate Antonio for treating us at Starlight. The post had a photo of the table, every plate piled high with gourmet dishes, plus a close-up of the bill, $88,000. It matched my bank alert. Down to the minute. And there she was in the photo, my wife, Naomi, leaning in close to Antonio, smiling as she poured him wine. My fists clenched. Just hours ago, Naomi had told me she'd be meeting a client with her boss, might have to work late into the night. I'd believed her. Felt bad for her, even. I stayed hungry at my desk, grinding away at overtime just so I could be free when she got home. I'd even ordered her favorite food, ready to spoil her after a long day. But her? She'd lied. She was at some high-end restaurant, celebrating Antonio's first day at the company. And this morning? She'd personally vouched for him to our boss, skipping the vetting process entirely and parachuting him straight into my department. It stung. Because Antonio wasn't just some guy. He was Naomi's first love. They'd broken up years ago, but the two of them still met up regularly. I'd confronted her before. She'd laughed it off, told me I was overreacting, that they were just friends now. But my patience, my trust, every inch I'd given her, only seemed to make her bolder. And now she was spending my money to make Antonio look like a big shot. That was it. I'd had enough. I picked up the phone, ready to rip into her. And when I was done, I'd end it for good. The moment she picked up, I didn't waste time. Naomi, using my card to pick up Antonio's tab, you're really getting comfortable, huh? What's next, openly keeping him as your boy toy? On the other end, Naomi's voice dropped low, like she didn't want anyone around her to hear. Sounded like the dinner had just wrapped up. Evan, what the hell are you talking about? Antonio's broke, Evan. Don't be so petty. I'm just helping him build rapport with his coworkers. Then her tone sharpened. If you keep being ridiculous, I'll break up with you. Think about your behavior for once. Click. The busy tone rang in my ears, cold and final. Naomi not only had the gall to pull this stunt, she hung up on me. What, she thought she was the prize here? Please. I'd already decided to end this. She didn't get to threaten me like she was the one in control. I took a slow breath, letting the anger settle into something cooler, sharper. In the background of that call, I'd caught a scrap of chatter, Antonio suggesting they head downstairs to the bar for round 2. Fine. They wanted to keep freeloading on my dime, play rich? I'd make sure they remembered this night for the rest of their lives. They were in the middle of their second act, music blaring, laughter bouncing off the walls. That's when I kicked the door open. I strode right up to Naomi and Antonio, him with a mic in hand, her leaning in, the two of them halfway through some syrupy love duet. The second they saw me, their mouths fell open, but no sound came out. I smiled. Warm. Almost gentle. Go on. Don't stop on my account. Antonio recovered first, forcing a big, fake grin and grabbing my hand like we were old friends. Evan. Man, what took you so long? Naomi's been waiting for you. Too bad they weren't smart enough to get their story straight. I turned to Naomi, playing it puzzled. Really? Because last I heard, you were meeting a client with your boss. Tell me, Naomi, when did Antonio become your boss? The words landed like a brick. Around us, faces shifted, the air thick with awkward silence. Naomi had always said office romances looked bad, so we kept ours a secret. Which meant right now, to everyone else, it just looked like she'd deliberately left me out, as if this was some petty game. And those same co-workers, who just stuffed themselves at an upscale restaurant on Antonio's dime, were quick to change their tune. After all, you don't bite the hand that feeds you. One by one, they started throwing out little defenses for Naomi. Naomi arched a brow at me, just a flicker of triumph in her eyes. Then, under her breath, she murmured. Evan, drop the attitude. Don't forget what I told you on the phone. Oh, I remembered. She thought I still loved her, that dangling a breakup over my head was enough to keep me in line. I let my face twist into fury, grabbed a glass of wine from the table, and sent it flying into Antonio's face. Antonio, I said, voice sharp and cutting, if you're broke, stop pretending you're a big spender. I didn't stop there. And don't think I don't know, you only got into the company because of Naomi. Without her pulling strings, a guy with a third-rate degree like yours wouldn't have made it past the front desk. In our company, almost everyone had a top-tier education. I knew the jab would sting, and I knew it would turn some of that anger back on Naomi. Before either of them could fire back, I turned on my heel and walked out of the private room without looking back. I knew exactly what Naomi would be thinking, that I'd stormed off because I was jealous. That this was just another fight where I'd eventually swallow my pride, apologize, and let her win. Only this time, that was exactly what I wanted her to think. Like before, the script would be, a blow-up over Antonio, then me, caving in. But the truth? I left that bar and treated myself to a great meal, taking my sweet time. And when I finally headed home, much later than usual, I made sure to wear the look of a man who'd been drinking alone, licking his wounds. Sure enough, when I pulled into the driveway and opened the door, it was Antonio who greeted me. Evan, you're back, he said, all fake warmth. I didn't want Naomi walking home alone this late, so I gave her a ride. You don't mind, do you? I flashed him a wide, easy smile. Of course not. I should be thanking you. That caught him off guard, just for a second, but it was enough. Not the reaction he'd been hoping for. I knew exactly what he wanted, the same thing he'd been angling for at the bar. To see me lose my temper, so Naomi could swoop in with sympathy. He pressed his lips together, then, playing the gentleman, said, Naomi, since Evan's back, I'll just grab a cab. From the couch, Naomi was on her feet in an instant, hurrying to the door. She caught his hand like it was nothing. Antonio, you said you felt dizzy after all that wine, remember? Don't go back tonight, just stay here. Antonio glanced at me, the corner of his mouth twitching into a little smirk. Then, feigning reluctance, he said, I don't know. Naomi already covered my tab tonight, and that seemed to bother Evan. I wouldn't want to push my luck. Then he turned to me, voice smooth, careful. Evan, Naomi was just being kind. She didn't want the new guy getting pushed around by coworkers. Don't worry, I'll pay you back. Inside, I almost laughed. Credit where it's due, Antonio knew how to stir the pot. Naomi's expression shifted fast, her mouth opening, ready to snap at me. But I beat her to it, my smile bright as ever. What's the big deal? Stay the night, hell, move your stuff in if you want. It's just dinner. I've got a watch in my study, and my car, you can borrow either anytime. Naomi's right. Getting into the company isn't easy. You need all the help you can get to find your footing. The words hung there, sharp and deliberate. Both of them went quiet. Shock has a way of stealing the tongue. It took Naomi a moment before she finally narrowed her eyes at me. Evan, what's your angle here? I swallowed the disgust, took her hand gently, and said in my calmest voice. What happened at the bar? I overreacted. Throwing wine at Antonio, that was out of line. I've had time to cool down, and I see things more clearly now. I've been too jealous in the past. I believe you when you say you and Antonio are just friends. Naomi, from now on I'll follow your lead. Your friends are my friends. Helping Antonio? That's my responsibility too. I made sure my tone was earnest, without a single crack of resentment showing through. Naomi's smirk returned. Now that's better. I knew you'd come around. Don't worry, so long as you listen to me, I won't break up with you. Inside, I rolled my eyes. She really thought I was afraid she'd leave me. Thought my so-called surrender was out of desperation. The woman was terminally self-absorbed. That night, Naomi decided Antonio needed looking after. She made him hangover soup and kept him company in the guest room, talking into the small hours. I didn't so much as blink, just smiled the whole time, leaving Antonio no room to bask in the reaction he wanted. The next morning, I didn't bother watching their little routine. I headed into the office early. I'd barely sat down when a coworker pressed his face to the window and blurted. Holy crap, whose sports car is that? I've never seen anyone here drive something like that, gotta be worth at least 200 grand. That got everyone crowding around for a better look. And then, perfect timing, Antonio stepped out of the driver's seat, swung open the passenger door, and offered his hand to Naomi. The two of them strolled toward the building like they owned the place. I felt the corner of my mouth curl upward. I knew exactly where this was going. With a guy like Antonio, greedy, shameless, addicted to playing rich, hooking him was never the problem. The moment Antonio stepped into the office, he was swarmed. Antonio, why didn't you tell us you came from money? No wonder you were so generous at that fancy restaurant last night. Man, you're incredible. A guy like you, willing to work alongside us regular folks? Antonio waved it off with mock modesty. Oh, I'm just an ordinary guy. But as he said it, he made sure his sleeve slipped back just enough to show the watch on his wrist. That was all it took. Whoa, Antonio, this watch. I've seen it on TV. Over 100 grand, right? Global limited edition, only 10 in the world. His hand gave a tiny twitch, like he'd realized he might be overplaying it, and he shot a quick glance my way. I met his look with steady calm, then joined in with the rest of the crowd. Antonio, stop being so modest. We're all counting on you to look out for us from now on. With every Antonio echoing in the air, he started to lose himself, drifting right into the fantasy, weaving tales about his prestigious family background. One of the more gossipy women piped up, curiosity in her voice. Antonio, I saw Naomi in your car this morning. Are you two, together? Naomi only glanced at him shyly, smiling without saying a word. After the crowd finally dispersed, Antonio pulled me aside, his voice full of fake humility. Evan, people misunderstood about Naomi. I didn't correct them, I just thought it'd help her keep her spot as project lead. Some of the team don't like her strict style. With my status, she can. I cut him off with a wave of my hand, playing the gracious fool. I get it. You don't have to explain. You and Naomi are just friends, and you're only trying to help her. His face softened instantly. Evan, you're a good guy. Naomi, seeing me be reasonable, darted in to plant a quick kiss on my cheek, her eyes flicking sideways to catch Antonio's reaction. That was her game, always stirring the pot, always wanting to watch us fight over her. And now that I wasn't taking the bait, she dangled just enough to keep Antonio hooked. Pathetic, really. Naomi wasn't worth 5 years of my loyalty, and this high school level drama was exhausting. Antonio's jaw tightened, fists curling just slightly before he forced them open. On the surface, he stayed soft-spoken, the perfect gentleman in Naomi's eyes. Once they'd both gone back to their desks, I pulled out a wet wipe and scrubbed at my cheek, hard, until I'd erased the last trace of her lipstick. By late morning, Antonio's rich air persona had swept through the company like wildfire. Even in the break room, people were nodding and grinning at him like he was royalty. Then the big one, our CEO himself, strolled in, smile wide, hand extended. Antonio, I've been hearing all about you. Tonight, Robinson Group is holding a major bidding event. Our company's only just gone public, so cash is tight. But if you came with me, it'd make a strong impression. Antonio's eyes lit up, poor guy couldn't even tell where the act ended anymore. He puffed his chest out and said, "A bidding project? That's nothing. Our company's destined for the global top 100, how could I let you spend your own money? No, let me cover it. Consider it my welcome gift to the company." Then, with a little smirk, I did hear there's an opening for an executive spot. You think? I sat in the corner of the break room, hearing every word. Of course I did, because it was me who'd made sure the rich air rumor reached the boss, and me who'd made sure Antonio knew that executive chair was sitting empty. The boss, for his part, seemed thrilled. Who wouldn't be, with a supposed golden goose waddling in? Pity for Antonio, it was all smoke and mirrors. The CEO cleared his throat, his voice loud enough to carry across the office. You could hear the confidence in it now, the certainty that tonight's bid was already in the bag. Everyone, pause your work for a moment, I have an announcement. Given Antonio's excellent performance since joining, I am officially appointing him as department head. The formal letter will be posted tomorrow. The place erupted, thunderous applause, a few shouts telling Antonio to take them all out to dinner. Naomi's eyes shone as she looked at him, her voice practically glowing with pride. Dinner will have to wait, she told them. Antonio's busy tonight, he's going with the boss to Robinson Group's bidding event. She let the words hang, the hint of triumph unmistakable. Once he lands that deal, we'll be celebrating twice over. One of the guys in the office let out an envious whistle. Man, the Robinson Group? That's top tier. I heard just the decor for tonight's bidding event is insane. Another chimed in, only a real heir like Antonio could walk in there with the boss. The rest of us can only dream. Antonio's grin spread so wide it nearly split his face. With a grand sweep of his hand, he said, "If everyone's that curious, then as your new department head, I'll take the entire team to watch the bidding event in person." That got cheers all around. Even the boss threw an arm over Antonio's shoulders, talking to him like they were lifelong pals. Of course, Antonio had no clue that bidding events weren't open houses. You needed an invitation, a limited entry pass. I thought to myself, the courage of the clueless. And if he was going to waltz right into a wall, I'd be more than happy to pave the way. I pulled out my phone and sent off a quick message. By that evening, Antonio had gone all in on the role, slipping into my custom-tailored suit and Italian leather shoes for the occasion. Looking every bit the part, he led the department like a parade, sweeping up to the venue's grand entrance. The security team spotted him, gave a polite bow, and waved the group through without so much as a pause. Antonio, never having been to a bidding event, assumed it was all thanks to his impeccable wardrobe. His smugness practically radiated off him. He didn't know it was me who'd made those guards treat him like royalty, me who'd tightened every knot in the rope he was hanging from. Because the higher he climbed, the better it would feel when he hit the ground. Naomi must have had a tiny flicker of conscience, emphasis on tiny. She slipped away from the crowd like a thief, leaning in close to me, her voice soft, almost conspiratorial. "Evan, you've been doing great lately. And you've helped Antonio a lot. After this bidding event goes well, let's get engaged." Classic Naomi, slap with one hand, sugar with the other. She really thought dangling an engagement would make me throw myself on the fire for her. It wasn't a promise. It was bait. A way to keep me on the hook so she could keep bleeding me dry. I smiled like a man flattered to the core and agreed. Inside, I felt nothing but disgust. Once every company's representatives had taken their seats, the bidding began. The starting price, $9 million. Sure, the Robinson Group's projects were lucrative, that was part of it. But the real prize was the partnership itself. To work with Robinson was to break into the center of the business elite, to get access to the kind of network that could change your life overnight. Which meant everyone in that room was ready to fight tooth and nail. And the price was only going one direction. I watched Antonio as he kept raising his paddle without hesitation, his voice slicing through the murmurs. 15 million. The room thinned out fast, only the heavy hitters were left in the game now. Even the boss sitting beside him was starting to sweat bullets. Finally, it came down to Antonio and one last competitor. 20 million, the other company called. Antonio barely blinked before lifting his paddle. Bid number 19, 30 million. I almost spat out my tea. The man had guts, I'll give him that. Or maybe it was just easy to be fearless when you weren't spending your own money. No surprise, Antonio took the project. The final gavel hit like a starting pistol for the next act. The event host stepped forward, smiling, clapping. Congratulations to Representative number 19, securing the partnership with a bid of 30 million. Please proceed to the stage to settle payment and sign the contract. Robinson Group's rules were strict, payment on the spot. No exceptions. In the dim light, I let the corner of my mouth curl upward. The real show was about to begin. Antonio rose from his seat, smoothed his jacket, and walked to the stage through a swell of applause. He looked every inch the successful businessman, the kind of man who was used to winning. With a casual flourish, he pulled out my black card and handed it to the event coordinator. His voice dropped into a practiced, dramatic baritone. "Put it on the card." I almost laughed out loud. He had the act down, probably watched one too many K-dramas. The coordinator swiped the card once, and his face hardened. He looked up, irritation creeping into his voice. "Sir, are you here to waste our time? Forget 70 million, you don't even have 70 cents on this card." For a moment, Antonio didn't process it. He gave the man a dismissive glance, his confidence untouched. "Impossible. Your machine's the problem." The coordinator rolled his eyes. "Our machine's fine. I've run it 3 times. Still declined." Of course it declined, I'd frozen the account less than 5 minutes ago. From the audience, Naomi leaned toward me, her voice tight with confusion. "Evan, what's going on?" But before either of them could piece it together, the doors burst open. A team of uniformed officers strode in, their boots heavy on the polished floor. They went straight for the stage, grabbed Antonio, forced him to the ground, and snapped a cuff onto his wrist. One officer flipped open his badge. "Police investigation. Antonio, you're under arrest for theft of high-value property. You'll need to come with us." The room erupted, gasps, murmurs, the kind of chaos that spreads fast when a golden boy falls. Antonio lay on the floor, stunned, the shock still locking his face in place. Naomi was already on the stage, pushing past an officer to get to him. She hauled him to his feet, her voice sharp, defiant. "This is a mistake. You can't just slap cuffs on someone and decide they're guilty. Take them off, now." I stood slowly, raising a hand to cut through the noise. "No mistake," I said, loud enough for the whole hall to hear. "I made the call. Antonio's been stealing from me, and that's a fact. Everything he's wearing, everything he's carrying, it's mine. Even that black card in his hand." Naomi's brows snapped together, her finger stabbing the air inches from my face. "Evan, God, I thought you were decent. Turns out you've been setting Antonio up from the start. You lent him those things. Now you're turning around and accusing him? That's rich. You're the thief crying thief. You're shameless. Absolutely shameless." The words were barely out of her mouth before the room blew up. "What? Borrowed? Did I hear that right? So Antonio's just a broke poser, and Evan's the one with the money? No wonder that suit looked off, it doesn't even fit him. Custom tailoring's done to your exact measurements. Damn. Using someone else's stuff to play big shot. That's next level pathetic." The cops glanced between Naomi and Antonio, their brows knitting. One finally turned to me. "Mr. Robinson, what exactly is going on here?" "Antonio stole my property," I said without hesitation. Naomi stamped her foot, her voice rising. "Evan, stop making things up. If you want to smear Antonio, at least bring proof." I met her glare with calm detachment. "Taking what isn't yours without asking, that's theft. And Naomi, what makes you so sure I don't have proof?" I pulled out my phone. A few taps, and I had the files ready. Then I decided to let the whole room see exactly who they were dealing with. With a swipe, the videos lit up the massive LED screen on stage. Heads tilted upward. Murmurs died. The first clip was from my study. The second from my walk-in closet. On screen, Antonio was there in full color, rifling through my things like a petty burglar. Then, unbelievably, he grabbed a pair of scissors and slashed through several of my suits, pieces he couldn't wear himself but didn't want me wearing either. The crowd stared, wide-eyed. There was no mistaking it. The moment the videos hit the screen, the tide turned. Every coworker who'd defended Antonio earlier now looked like they'd just swallowed a fly. Voices started rising, sharp and fast, until the room was buzzing with outrage. "God, Antonio, you're unbelievable. I thought you were the real deal. Hell, I even covered some of your work today. What a joke. Knew it, only people like Evan, the real ones, stay low-key. They don't need to flaunt it. A petty thief like this is an embarrassment to the company. Officer, take him away. Let him rot in a cell." In an instant, Antonio went from riding high to being the stray dog everyone wanted to kick. He kept his head down, eyes darting anywhere but at me, not daring to say a word. Phones came out across the hall, some filming, some already streaming live. Naomi stepped forward suddenly, putting herself between Antonio and the cameras. "Stop. No more filming," she shouted. Honestly? I had to hand it to her, her devotion to Antonio was ocean deep. She'd never defended me like that. She turned on me, eyes blazing. "Evan, you are not letting the police take Antonio. We're settling this quietly. If you don't agree, we're done." Naomi had no idea how pathetic she looked, trying to threaten me with a breakup like it was still a bargaining chip. And before she could bask in her own courage, the crowd erupted again. "Wait, Naomi's not Antonio's girlfriend? She's Evan's?" Naomi's face went red. She snapped, ready to put out the fire. "Lies. I never said I was Antonio's girlfriend. We're completely innocent. Keep this up, and I'll sue for slander." Naomi might have been better off saying nothing. Instead, her attempt to explain only dug the hole deeper. The gossip-loving women in the crowd let out a chorus of mocking boos, their voices dripping with disdain. When we all thought you and Antonio were together, you didn't deny it. That's basically admitting it. Please. The way you look at him, you two might as well have been kissing. Don't play innocent now. Two-timing both guys? Pathetic. Exactly. Evan's rich and handsome, and you still cheat? Your eyesight must be broken. Naomi's face flushed a furious red. She dropped her head, unable to meet anyone's eyes, like she was searching for a hole to crawl into. And then, unbelievably, her gaze darted to me. Like she expected me to step in and save her. The nerve. After everything, she still thought I'd cover for her? I acted like I hadn't noticed, my tone calm and deliberate. Naomi, I accept your breakup. And I refuse to settle quietly. As for the items Antonio stole and damaged, I'll take the cash value, $2,088,000, exactly. Her head snapped up, disbelief etched across her face. Evan, how dare you break up with me? You said you'd love me for life. You said you'd do anything for me. I let out a cold, humorless laugh. I don't make a habit of funding my girlfriend's side boy. Enough talking. Antonio can start paying me back. And since you care about him so much, I'm sure you'll be thrilled to help. Antonio's face crumpled into a picture of wounded innocence. Evan, that's so much money. Naomi could never afford it. Naomi, just go. I don't want to drag you down. Whatever happens to me, I'll take it. Naomi was practically glowing with emotion. She gripped his arm and said, Antonio, you're the only one who's ever truly cared about me. I'll never abandon you. After their little public display of devotion, Naomi turned on me, spitting venom. Evan, that compensation number, you just pulled it out of thin air. You're trying to extort us. And what's with the extra $88,000? She was ready to tear me apart. But she shouldn't have asked. Because the coworker who'd posted that social media photo yesterday was the first to put it together. Oh my God, that dinner yesterday, Antonio used Evan's money, didn't he? I remember the bill, it was $88,000 exactly. I can't believe I was actually grateful. Turns out Antonio couldn't even buy a meal without borrowing someone else's card to look generous. If you can't afford it, don't fake it. Thinking back on that dinner now just makes me sick. Naomi's jaw clenched so tight her teeth practically rattled. She wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. I waved a hand, all magnanimous calm. All right, Naomi. I'll knock off the extra. Let's call the dinner my treat. The event coordinator pushed his way over, face set in a scowl. Your company just won the bid, that's on record. Robinson Group's project kicks off soon, but payment has to be settled today. Naomi stayed planted in Antonio's corner, stubborn and shrill. This has nothing to do with us. Evan set Antonio up. That $30 million should be on his head, go get it from him. I rolled my eyes, my patience fraying. Naomi, if your brain's malfunctioning, see a doctor. Was I the one who dragged Antonio here? Was I the one who told him to bid $30 million? The other company rep started chiming in. She's unbelievable, taking advantage of someone and then acting like they owe you for it. Stay clear of her, people like that will bleed you dry. Naomi had no comeback, but she still forced the words out. I don't care. Evan's paying. The coordinator had heard enough. He snorted, eyes cold. You're funny. When has a young master ever paid out of pocket for his own family's project? Naomi froze. Her head tilted, suspicion and confusion twisting her face. What's that supposed to mean? The coordinator didn't miss a beat. Robinson Group's chairman, Evan's father. The color drained from her face. You you told me your family got rich from winning the lottery," she stammered. I remembered. Back then, Naomi's family was nothing special. Antonio had broken up with her for that very reason. It had left her with a deep, stubborn insecurity. She swore she'd only ever marry a normal man who truly loved her, no powerful families, no men with influence. When we got together, I wanted to give her the best of everything without wounding her pride. So I lied, told her I'd grown up in an ordinary home, got lucky with the lottery, and built a small business from there. Now, when she asked her question, I didn't answer. And she didn't push. But I saw her eyes glisten, the way she blinked like she was suddenly remembering all the times I'd lowered myself, never asking for anything in return, just to make her feel safe. And how she'd thrown it all away. Her arrogance was gone now. She stepped toward me, took my hand like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "Evan. I was wrong. Please forgive me. Don't leave me." I shook her off, my voice cold as stone. "Take them," I told the officers. "Follow procedure." They cuffed Naomi alongside Antonio and marched them both toward the waiting patrol car. Once, it was because Naomi claimed she felt out of place at work that I'd set aside my family name and joined her company. I still remembered those early days, how poor she was at the job, how I'd gone out of my way to help her find her footing. But that was over. The breakup was final, and my focus needed to be on my own future. The company I'd joined had potential, and in this business, knowing which way the wind blows was everything. My father's words came back to me, "Leave people a way out. You never know when you'll cross paths again." So I resigned, but I also offered to sell tonight's project to the boss at the original bidding price, securing the partnership. He was over the moon. Shook my hand, thanked me like I'd handed him the keys to the kingdom, and thumped his chest with the promise. "Evan, don't worry. I'll give this project everything I've got." The boss didn't waste a second. The moment he got back, both Antonio and Naomi were out, fired on the spot. In this industry, everyone knew the score. Word traveled fast, they'd crossed Robinson Group. Which meant no one in the business would touch them again. After a trip to the police station, Antonio made his position clear, shoulders squared like he'd figured out some clever escape. "I can't pay that much back," he said, smug in defeat. "So just lock me up. I'll do my time." He thought it was a win, 3 meals a day, a bed, and no debt hanging over him. I wasn't about to give him that mercy. I smiled, casual. The officers handling the case asked my opinion, and Naomi stood there wringing her hands, waiting for my answer. "No problem," I said. "If they can't pay, they can pay slowly. No need for prison. No need for a record either, it wouldn't look good." Naomi visibly exhaled, then had the gall to lift her chin again. "Evan, at least you have some conscience. If you'd put Antonio in jail, I'd haunt you to my dying breath." I rose from my chair, meeting her eyes with a calm, measured look. "Don't get too happy just yet." It wasn't until they walked out of the station that they realized they'd been fired. No job. No network. And now they were blacklisted as debtors. There was no coming back from this. To keep food on the table and start chipping away at what they owed me, they were forced into backbreaking, low-paying labor. For Naomi, who'd never lifted a finger in her life, it was a shock she couldn't survive for even a week. She showed up at my door, pride swallowed, voice soft. "Evan, the compensation you're asking for is too high. We just can't come up with that much. Can't you give us more time? I'm begging you." Her loyalty to Antonio was almost admirable in its blindness. I'd never seen her plead for anyone like this. And I couldn't help wondering, when she finally saw Antonio for what he really was, what would that face look like? I smiled faintly, gave a small nod. "As long as you two get married, the debt's gone. Wiped clean." Naomi's confidence came flooding back in an instant. "That's easy. I'll get the marriage certificate with Antonio today, but you'd better keep your word." In her mind, Antonio loved her deeply. Antonio, hearing the deal, jumped at it. No more debt. He was ready to marry Naomi on the spot. Naomi was almost giddy. She told herself she was back with her first love from her youth, that even if they were poor now, growing old together would be enough. She forgot the reality. They were burned in this industry. No one would hire them. If she couldn't survive a week of low-wage labor, how could she possibly stomach a lifetime? I had them followed for a while. At first, Antonio doted on her, just as he had before, only now it was clear it had never been love. In the past, he'd chased her because of my money, hoping to ride my coattails. After the rich boy act collapsed, he used Naomi as a shield, letting her take the blows while he kept his head down. Now the debt was gone and they were legally married. It didn't take long before he stopped pretending altogether. He quit trying. Spent his days sprawled at home, doing nothing, living off whatever Naomi could scrape together from the lowest paid jobs she could find. Naomi had never known hardship. With me, every meal, every drink, every moment had been the best money could buy. The resentment between them built fast. Naomi complained daily. Antonio, quick to anger, turned violent. Her white moonlight first love had turned into a man she could barely stand to look at. I sat in my office, flipping through paperwork while my assistant gave the report. Watching Naomi and Antonio tear each other apart was satisfying in a way nothing else quite matched. With a wave of my hand, I dismissed my assistant. There was no need to keep tabs on them anymore. I'd already gotten exactly what I wanted. My father had taken my mother overseas for a long vacation, leaving the weight of the Robinson Group squarely on my shoulders. One afternoon, I stopped at a flower shop, picking out roses, when a figure burst out from behind the display. A filthy, disheveled woman dropped to her knees in front of me, clutching my leg like a drowning swimmer grabbing a rope. "Evan, please, take me with you," she begged. "Antonio's a bastard." I was wrong. "I love you, it's you I want to marry." Something in her voice struck a chord of recognition. I looked closer. It was Naomi. In just 2 weeks, she'd aged years. The gloss, the pride, gone. Her face was hollow, her clothes ragged. I took a step back, disgust curling in my chest. Behind me, Tiffany's voice broke the moment. "Evan, let's go." I handed the bouquet of red roses to her. She smiled, that small, knowing smile I'd known my whole life. Naomi stared at us like she was trying to make sense of it. "Who is she?" The shop clerk came bustling out with a broom, her tone brisk. Out, where'd this vagrant come from, holding up our business?" She turned to Naomi, then added for good measure. "This is Mr. Robinson's fiancée, Miss Tiffany Waldorf, the Waldorf heiress herself." Tiffany and I had grown up together, our families had been tied for generations. It was a business match, sure, but we'd always gotten along. Better to take a step towards something real, even if it started as an arrangement, than to stay chained to someone who'd done nothing but wound me. Naomi's eyes flicked over Tiffany, her delicate features, her understated but unmistakably expensive clothes, and then down to herself. A clown dragged from the mud couldn't compare. She lowered her head. I laced my fingers through Tiffany's, and we walked out of the shop. Somewhere behind me, Naomi's voice drifted faintly. "I'm sorry." Maybe she finally understood. We were never from the same world. The life she'd once lived by my side, the ease, the shine, had only been possible because I'd given it to her, piece by piece, until there was nothing left to give. We hadn't made it far when a sharp, high-pitched scream split the air behind us. Tiffany and I turned. Antonio, dressed in the same kind of cheap, grimy clothes as Naomi, was storming toward her. The moment he reached her, he fisted a hand in her hair and yanked, snapping her head back. 2 sharp slaps cracked through the air. "You worthless bitch," he snarled. "Skipping work again? You think I'm gonna eat vegetables? I want meat. Go buy it." Naomi clutched her head, crying, her voice shaking. I won't, please. But there's no money left." Another slap. "Still talking back?" Tiffany glanced at me, hesitation flickering in her eyes. "Should we call the police?" I shook my head lightly. Naomi's life was no longer my concern, and I had no reason to step in. "Let's go." We walked on. The sunlight spilled over the roses in Tiffany's arms, over her face, over mine. The past was a shadow I no longer chased. The road ahead was bright.